This is the second video in my series about why I open carry, and the first one I talked about a woman who had been battered and how I was in the right place at the right time to help her be able to find the right ammunition and the right training. She obviously had been injured. Well, this is a different story, but it also involves an elderly woman, and I was at an outdoor event, and of course I open carry, and my state's very friendly towards open carry. We've got some great laws that reinforce constitutional open carry. And as I was walking at this outdoor event, it's a beautiful day, this lady comes up and she says, "Can I tell you my story?" And I said, "Sure." And she noticed that I was open carrying, of course, seemed very comfortable with that, which most people in my area are. And as she's talking to me, she says, "I'm 73. I live alone." She said, "I'm a widow." She said, "I live outside of town." And she said, ever since my husband died, she said, "I have a little revolver." And she said, "I keep it in a little holster." And she said, "I take it with me in the house wherever I am." She said, "Because I realize I'm alone and I'm potentially vulnerable." And so she said, things like home invasions had concerned her. And so she said she was in her house working. And as she was, I think she said she was in the kitchen at that point, she said she had the revolver laying next to her, and she was in the habit of taking it room to room with her, as I said. She said she hears this sudden and furious knocking on the door, this pounding on her front door. She said it's in the middle of the day, on a weekday, and she said at that point she stepped around the corner and she could see out of her kitchen across the living room, and she could see this individual, this guy. She said he was in his mid to late 20s, white guy standing there, and she said he's got this really weird, almost leering look on his face. And she said at that moment, she said her front door was actually open, but her storm door was shut and locked. And she said she realized at that point that she just had a little bit of plastic and aluminum between her and him. She realized that by the way he was looking at her and so forth, that she was in a great deal of trouble. And she said she tried to kind of scare him off, and she's like, "Hey, who are you? What do you want? Go away." And she said he just kept looking at her, and he's ringing the doorbell alternately and pounding on this storm door with his other hand. And she said about that time he reaches down and tries to pry the storm door open. And she said she knew she was about 8 minutes from having the police there if she was lucky. Pretty smart lady. And so she said at that point she reached around the corner and grabbed that handgun and she pulled it up. Well, she had a little grip laser on it, and she never did tell me what kind of laser it was, so I don't know if it was a Crimson Trace or what. But she said it was set that as soon as her hand wrapped around the pistol grip, the laser would come on. And that's great for the ladies, let me tell you. And it's a huge confidence builder for the ladies, and it's also a great way to not have to worry. A lot of the ladies love that. It's a great intimidation factor for the person with the laser on him too. She said at that moment the guy kind of stopped in surprise when he saw the firearm. She's got both hands wrapped around it. She's got it aimed steadily at his chest from across the house, and she says, "Look down." She said the guy looked down, screamed like a girl, and ran. And she said she never did see him again. And I said, "Ma'am, you are my hero." I said, I'm proud of you for taking a stand and defending yourself. And in this instance, you didn't even have to open fire." I said, "I think that's phenomenal." And people don't realize how many times that happens in a year. I mean, once you start talking to people who've carried for years, whether at home or abroad, traveling or to and from work or whatever, you start hearing these stories where every day countless Americans are able to defend themselves without actually having to pull the trigger. And of course, the media would like us to believe otherwise, but we know the truth. And I can't tell you how many stories I've had told to me like this that are just, that was a heartwarming story. And I told her, I said, "Did you call the police?" And she said, "Well, at that point, I didn't have anything to give them." And I said, "I understand." And she said, "I've been down that road before. It wasn't worth doing." And I said, "Well," I said, "oddly enough, I think they probably could have trailed him." And she said, "Well, why would you say that?" And I said, "Well, there was probably a stream of urine on the ground around the corner to wherever he was parked." And she just laughed. But anyway, that's my second why I open carry story. Is I have people approach me and tell me those stories, and I've asked her permission to share that with other people. Of course, minus names and locations and times and dates and all that. But that woman is an inspiration to me because she was not about to be a victim. So that's one more reason why I open carry.